I had this idea of taking these Revolutionary War monuments and updating them through the language of jewelry and adornment and telling new stories about historic figures. I'm John Wind, and welcome to Charm Offensive at the Reilly Memorial. This is Baron Friedrich von Steuben. He was a great military tactician, but what he really is known for, in my way of thinking, is the fact that he was as close to an out gay man as you could be in the 18th century. And perhaps that's why he was forced to flee Prussia, because he was indiscreet. Now, Washington was desperate for talented military support, and on an introduction from Benjamin Franklin, von Steuben interviewed for the job and was selected. So I guess you could say it was the US military's first don't ask, don't tell policy. Von Steuben ultimately adopted two male officers, and they settled together in New York State. And on his death, the officers inherited his estate. So my way of referencing that story, creating a keychain that says, "Welcome to our home, the von Steubens." Something that could never have happened back then, but through my 21st century lens, I'm making it happen today. This is John Paul Jones. He became known as the father of the American Navy. He was born in Scotland, and by 13, he was on the seas. He was a bit of a pirate, and he killed a man during a mutiny on the ship and was going to be jailed for it. So instead, he fled to Virginia, where his older brother was already living, and added the name Jones, thus the charm, Mr. Jones, to his given name, John Paul, to escape persecution and discovery. It seems like he could have tried a little harder, but I guess it worked for him. The red, white, and blue flag is called the Serapis flag, and that is a famous military battle where he captured a British ship. The flag was destroyed, and he was about to be arrested yet again for commanding a ship without identity, without markings. So legend has it that Benjamin Franklin designed the Serapis flag. It was quickly sewn up and hung on the ship, and that flag ended up becoming one of his personal trademarks. The Mighty Mouse, small but mighty charm is my whimsical way of just acknowledging the fact that he himself, Jones, was small but mighty. He was said to stand about 5'6", but he was very large in terms of his military skill and his legend and reputation. The number 16 stands for the number of British ships that he captured, which sounds like an awful lot. So that's just proof of how good he was at what he did. This is General Casimir Pulaski. Pulaski came from Poland, and he was all about the cavalry. So he modernized the American cavalry. He was another great military tactician. The US Post Office had a series of stamps celebrating this Semiquincentennial, the 150th anniversary of the US Revolutionary War. Now, I knew the name Pulaski, but I knew him for a very random reason, and that is the Pulaski Skyway that is a bridge that connects a certain part of New York and New Jersey. I literally went on eBay and discovered this New Jersey state commemorative plate, which is so random, but just shows you how these famous names from history infiltrate our culture and completely separated from the reason that they're famous. But people take the Pulaski Skyway every day, and there's a commemorative plate to honor that. This is a weird one. In the 20th century, the Smithsonian did research that discovered that Pulaski was intersex. That yellow charm with the purple circle is the symbol of the intersex symbol. And the New York Times reported on this, that his body was literally exhumed, and that while he presented and lived his life as a man, there were characteristics of both male and female in his skeleton that they were able to discover. Just an interesting example of the kind of facts that history might not tell when you're thinking about commemoration of a war general. But for sure, if that was the truth, it would have impacted his life. And having that story told is going to help people today who, whatever your minority status, its representation is so meaningful. And that's part of, my goal with this show, is to bridge that gap and not make it less about them and us, and humanize these generals, whether it's through stories of, their personal politics, their identity, body issues. I mean, everybody has a story, and I'm trying to share that. This is General Richard Montgomery. Montgomery is famous for a number of things. Sadly, one of them is that he was the first general to die in the Revolutionary War at the young age of 37, and that was during the Canadian campaign. Early in his career, he was involved with campaigns in the West Indies as well as the Americas, so that's where the globe fits in. Each of the sculptures has a flag of the country that the general came from, the state that he's associated with or settled in, something else unique to that general, and then the information banners that we created specifically for each general. So in this case, this is the New York state flag. New York is where Montgomery moved to and met and married his wife, Janet Livingston, although, of course, since he died at 37, he didn't have much of a life after he came here and fought in the Revolution. This is General Greene, Nathaniel Greene. He was full of contradictions, and here's what I mean. The symbol at the top of this central necklace is the Quaker symbol, the like Moravian star. So he was a Quaker, but he was very militaristic, and his military zeal literally got him expelled from the Quakers. He also married a woman named Katie, and Katie was from a prosperous New York family, and they farmed, but they had enslaved workers work the farms. That was another no-no in the Quaker tradition, but it was expedient, and so Greene ignored that. And I've also represented that on the top right with that beautiful and famous Wedgwood abolitionist charm from the 18th century that says, "Am I not a man and a brother?" It's a Wedgwood medallion designed around 1787. Greene was also known as the man who saved the South, and I represent that with the magnolia flower on the necklace on the left. An interesting detail that I discovered in my research was that he had a slight limp throughout his life. And while it wasn't a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination, he was ultimately considered to be the second best general in America after Washington. But that limp was part of his psyche and narrative, and I've included a disability rights charm to represent that. Nathaniel and his wife Kathy had 7 children, and by all accounts and the letters of the day, while he was away at battle a lot, he was a doting and excellent father, and that's why I've used the super dad charm on the necklace as well. So this is the Marquis de Lafayette. Lafayette is unique because while he came to America to help with the revolutionary cause, he ended up going back to France, where he also helped with their revolutionary cause. Thus, he became known as the hero of two worlds. The American and French flag charm represents that kind of dual identity and nationality. I also love the reference to Hamilton. Hamilton, the musical, was very influential for me in the first iteration of this project, which was called Whiskey Rebellion. The way that Lin-Manuel Miranda, married past and present and hip hop and history was so inspiring. And in my own way, I wanted to take that kind of, sassy attitude and bring it to my project. George Washington considered Lafayette like his son, his honorary son. And then when Lafayette had a son, he literally named him George Washington de Lafayette. The key is the key to the Bastille prison that Lafayette was instrumental in helping depose Louis XVI in the French Revolution. In 1824, Lafayette returned to the United States for what was known as his farewell tour, celebrating America's 50th anniversary. It was a huge pop culture phenomenon, and all these cool commemorative objects were created at the time. And the passport charm is a reference to the fact that Lafayette was named an honorary U.S. citizen by Congress, which was a very rare distinction. It feels fantastic to see people just pause and stare and get into it. It's the very definition of public art, where the work is exposed by, it's unexpectedly stumbled upon by the public, as opposed to having work in a museum or gallery setting where it's very intentional. People come for the work. Here, it's a happy accident. My goal for Charm Offensive at Reilly Memorial is to paint a more realistic picture of who are these 6 people, and by extension, think differently about, heroes from history and how there's this supposed gap between them and us. And in fact, when you dig a little deeper, the stories are more complicated, the people are more human, and we're all part of a continuum. The Reilly Memorial for this weekend is a safe space to be yourself and to find kindred spirits both from past and present.